The following programming made possible in part by generous contributions from Winship Designs and by Glasscraft.
By far, the choice of fuel gas that has just dominated flame working, specifically even for borosilicate, is propane. It's clean, it's relatively inexpensive, and it's extremely easy to obtain. You can get it just about anywhere. You also have options in the size of propane cylinder you're going to use, everything from a 1 gallon, 5 gallon, or 10 gallon, and even bigger depending on the size of the studio and how much fire you're actually pushing and how much time you spend on an average day blowing glass. My first year I used a 1 gallon tank because I was using a small bead torch from Whale Apparatus called the Firebird, and a 1 gallon tank would average me about 2 weeks at that point. However, as soon as I stepped up to my Barracuda, which is a Bethlehem torch, now it's the top fire of my system, I went to a 5 gallon tank, which again started lasting me about 2 weeks. However, when I added the PM2D from Bethlehem, I ran into real fuel consumption and now run off of a 10 gallon propane tank, and again, it lasts me about 2 weeks of actual production time. So in a nutshell, those are your options. What we're going to do is show you how to hook up a propane cylinder to a regulator, a flashback arrestor, and a quick connect so that you can replicate it in your own studio. Just like propane, oxygen comes in a myriad of choices, from large-scale delivery for commercial applications all the way down to oxygen concentrators for hobby and enthusiast usage. By far, the type of oxygen delivery that most people end up using is the high-pressure cylinder. Now, these high-pressure cylinders have a cap when they're shipped. It's on there to keep the valve from being broken off, because these turn into ballistic missiles if the valve is broken off. As soon as this is off, it needs to be chained to a wall so that the cylinder can't be tipped over. That's what these caps are there to prevent, is a rupture. Cryogenic liquid oxygen is an option. However, you have to check with your local city and fire zoning before you can choose this option. It really only works if you're really doing glass like 8 hours a day. And then there's medical oxygen concentrators that have been refurbished and put to work in the world of flame working. Now, these are great for small hobbyist bead makers. As long as you're working on a really small scale, these things can actually provide your oxygen at the flip of a switch, and all you do is plug it into one tank. Let's pick up oxygen. I want to take a minute before we jump into lighting torches and everything else and discuss tooling and what comes in the kit and what I recommend you supplement the kit with. The kit, of course, comes with a torch. There's no more crucial or centerpiece of glassworking than the torch. If you see bubbles, that's a leak. And we're leak-free, so we can get right on it. I want to talk about some of the first fundamentals of glass. We've set up a studio and we've talked about lighting torches, and before we really start talking about making things, and we've talked about flame characteristics, I want to go over some of the stuff you can do with glass. Obviously it comes in rods, it comes in tubes. One thing you can do is you can cut the glass in the fire. We've talked about cutting it manually cold. You can heat up a section and pull it apart and give it a little twist like that and break it into 2 sections. Next thing you should work on being able to do is take and weld those 2 sections back together. And it's okay if there's a little bit of a bump where you weld 2 pieces together. You'll get that the more you do it, the more proficient you'll become. You can use a tool to form it if it helps. Other things you can do with glass. We're going to talk about a few techniques real quick. And I recommend you keep a jar of water around for just that. I want to play with glass, but sometimes there's something you need to know about, because what if two glasses aren't the same? There's different types of glass. There's Moretti, there's hard glass or borosilicate, there's people that work bullseye in the flame for a cross between flame working and slumping and fusing. And in the end, the nutshell difference is all about the coefficient of expansion of each individual glass. That is how much it expands as its temperature increases and contracts as its temperature decreases. Something with a high coefficient of expansion moves a lot as it is heated and cooled, and it makes it more fragile, and you have to get it in a kiln and watch its temperatures more critically. Something like borosilicate has a COE of approximately 33. It is a lot more forgiving, and it's a lot harder to create large stresses. Sometimes, though, the bottom line is you need to find out if two pieces of glass you're holding are compatible, and I'm going to show you how to determine that. These two look the same, but they're nothing alike, because I'm holding Moretti and I'm holding borosilicate. I'm going to paint a stripe with the Moretti on the side of this borosilicate. Moretti is so nice and soft. I actually like working with Moretti sometimes. Now I'm going to heat this piece that I just made and let it all melt together. And then I'm going to grab the end. Come here, you stupid little thing. I'm going to pull it out. Now I'm going to let this cool. And you will watch. It's putting a bend in it because the coefficient of expansion of the 93, or 96, the Moretti, 104, it's high. Whoa! Those two glasses are not compatible, and that's how you can tell. Right there, it just pulled itself to pieces as it was cooling. A stringer doesn't do that because it's one, type of glass. So you can always try that. If all else fails and you're not sure if two pieces of glass or two colors or something are similar enough to work, try the little trick there and see if it survives. Those little pieces will just pull themselves to bits if it's not compatible.